Baruch haba b'shem Yahuwah. This is Revealing the Word. Today we are going to take a journey together and discover the hidden word of Yahuwah. So put on your broad-brimmed hats and get ready to excavate the word with us, because we Shema Elohim with you. Shalom. This is your host, Jessica Arianis of HaKo Kalam Ministries, and my special co-host, Eric Bissell. In this episode of Revealing the Word, we are going to discuss the word Shema as well as the word Shamir.
So this word Shema is the first concept that humans, Adam and Hava, were ever given. This word Shema literally simply is translated here. It's a very famous word. It's perhaps the most famous word in all of Scripture, in that the Jews, basically of today, have this saying, which they from what I understand, they say once a day, 3 or 5 times a day, or this is the phrase they want on their lips as they're dying. Shema Israel, Yahuwah Eloheinu, Yahuwah Echad. It's from Deuteronomy 6, I believe. Anyway, it's translated, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one." But it's actually saying Shema, which isn't exactly here. It includes here, but it's more than here. And then it says Yahweh Eloheinu, Yahweh Echad. And my take on it, that cannot be translated, "The Lord our God is one Lord." I disagree with that translation, but I'm mentioning it just because that's what people will probably hear. Normally, that's written as Hashem or Adonai or the Lord, one God. This word Echad, we'll discuss that later. Does it mean a singularity of one, or does that mean that everything he says is the same thing? Two different matters. We can discuss that later. But this word Shema, another time I've heard this translated as listen, listen, Israel. And so you could say, well, if you say the word Shema, does it mean, okay, hear or listen, take heed, pay attention now? There's more to it than that. But the other reason why it's so famous, even though that the Jews give it such a highest regard, is perhaps the most important verse in the Bible. Perhaps Yeshua, when he was asked, what's the most important commandment? This is the verse that he quotes. He says, Shema Israel, Yahweh Eloheinu, Yahweh Echad. And the second he said was like to it, that you shall love your neighbor as yourself. So the fact that Yeshua reiterated this verse of Shema means that this action of Shema is perhaps the most noteworthy primary commandment we were given. And then this other word similar to it, shomer, Adam and Chava, I'll explain that in a minute. They were told to shomer the garden. The word shomer is spelled shin mem resh, and it means watch, keep, guard, look well to, observe, protect, or even filter or remove the dregs, like if you were removing sediment out of something. The word Shema is Shin Mem Ayin. The commonality between Shin Mem Resh and Shin Mem Ayin is the word spelled Shin Mem, which is the word for name, which I believe we discussed in another show. It means name, fame, renown, reputation. And then there's the letter Ayin in one word and the letter Resh. Well, the letter Ayin literally is an eye, an eyeball, and it means to comprehend, consider, look well to, balance exactly, pay close attention, whereas the letter Resh is a head, and it means something of great significance or to be exalted, honored. It's also the pinnacle, it's also the foundation. If you look at the meaning of the word Resh Aleph Shin, Rosh. Rosh Chodesh, for example, some people consider to be the beginning of the month, and some people consider it to be the middle of the month, whereas one would be the sliver and the other one the full moon. It's like it's literally kind of both.
So for those of you who have been following along with us, you will recall from last episode we were discussing the origin of language, in which we both agree that before you can understand a structural overview of language, or any language for that matter, we first have to understand how language communicate. And then we took you to the origin of communication, which is Yahuwah himself. And we showed you how in Genesis, as Yahuwah was creating the Tolda, or the genesis of things, or the genealogy of creation, where in fact it was created through the Amar, or through his speaking, his communication. So then we want to also understand, if Yahuwah communicates, then how exactly do we receive the information? And then what do we do with that information? How is it then conveyed in our life? I believe this is quintessential to our faith, because Yeshua himself is the Word revealed. He's the Word made flesh. So the Word was somehow conveyed through a vessel, or through a entity, which in this case would be the species of man. The word was communicated, and then that word was expressed perfectly, without any error, devoid of nothing, and it was communicated perfectly through the man Yahushua, and the word was made flesh, or the word was revealed. So we too want to understand, how does Yahuwah communicate, and then how do we receive that information and then have it expressed or conveyed in our lives by faith. So that's why Eric brought up that word Shema. And as he did, I do want to interject here and say that the word Shema specifically means hear and obey, which is the most common description of this word. However, as Eric is showing you, it can mean a few more things and have more weight attached to it. Where in fact, I want to show you that Eric said, Yahushua claimed that the most important commandment was to hear, O Israel, Yahuwah, your Elohim Echad, right?
Yeah.
And if that's the case, then he said, and there's another one that's very similar. It's very much like it, and it is to love Elohim, obviously, as a priority, and then to love your neighbor with the same priority. Now, that shows me right there that to hear and obey is an expression of love. It's an expression of devotion. It's an expression of fidelity. And if you really understand this word Shema, even in the Strongs, it's 8088, and it's what the prophets would do. The prophets would Shema Yahuwah, their Elohim, and they would hear the word, and that word was somehow expressed, and it was brought forth. And we were looking up three different words of a prophet, and we looked up, I think it was the word nabi, right, where we showed is the seed in the house. We also looked up that word hoseh.
How is it spelled?
Chet zayin hey.
Chet Zayin Hey would be chazah,
Yes.
which would be where we would get in English probably the word hazy, Hazy, because the het is the eighth letter, like our letter H, and then the Zion is actually the seventh letter, but it's where we get our Z sound. And then the hey at the end would be a ha. So chazah is where we would get hazy, hazed,
Hazah. Well,
which is
that,
when you see something kind of blurry. So whether it's blurry or it's something hard to see, because it's kind of hazy, but the Navi, the prophet, is the one who can see through the haze to see clearly and give this message, you might say, that other people can't see. That's the prophet's job description.
right. And again, that word nabi, which is actually, it defines the position of one who is a mouthpiece. A nabi wouldn't completely understand what they are receiving, what information is coming through, but they become a spokesperson or a mouthpiece, and they are subjugated to the message or the messenger, or the one that is giving the message. So they would simply take that information and convey it. They may not understand everything that is working together, however, where in fact a Haze and a Roe, which are the two different offices of a prophet we spoke of last week, a Haze and a Roe would actually have visions. So they wouldn't necessarily hear the word as much as they would see the word, and they would get visionary perspectives or aspects of the experience. So if Yahuwah was relaying information to them, then they would receive a vision, and their perspective would be the aspect. Go ahead.
But again, as we discussed the other day, this notion of in some of the minor prophets, the books in the Tanakh, it starts off saying the word of Elohim came to, or the word of Yahweh came to. It's like, well, did they actually get a vision where you saw physical objects with your physical eye, or is it your mind's eye, or is it a conceptual seeing?
Right.
So, for example, there was this one day where I was just had the hunch to look at the alphabet. I didn't even know why or what that meant. It was just kind of had this hunch to look at the alphabet. And I was busy for it took me 6 months before I had a few moments. I thought, oh, I'm going to sit down and look at the alphabet. I didn't know why, but I was just going to look at the alphabet. And I sat there to look at it. And all of a sudden I saw this message in the arrangement of the letters of the alphabet. And it was so obvious. I thought, well, everybody knows this. I didn't know it, but I thought everybody who knows anything about Hebrew must know this because it was so blatantly clear. Now, I didn't see a vision of objects or people moving or angels or whatever. Different people get different kind of visions. I didn't see anything like that, but it was this conceptual understanding that was just clearly right there. Is that the kind of vision that somebody could have?
Right.
Is that where you can see clearly, though you're not seeing physical objects like that you could take a photograph with a video camera.
Kind of like in Genesis 15:1, where Abram says again that the word of Yahuwah came to Abram in a vision saying. So right there, I think that's key. That is exactly what the vision comes to do. The word comes to speak or to communicate or to convey, almost like a transponder? Is that the right word?
Sure. So transponder, interestingly enough, the word ponder means to consider and think.
Right.
The word for goy, gimel vav yod, meaning non-Jew, basically, if you look that up, it just means nation or people. But if you look up the word Haggah, hey gimel hey, it means to navigate. It's a rudder, helm, steering wheel, that which causes to steer, but it also means to ponder, meditate, pronounce, to consider the spelling of words. So this whole idea of like the book of James in the New Testament, where it says your tongue is like this small member, like the rudder on a ship, which steers this great big ship with this little tiny rudder. So is your tongue. So is pondering spelling of words for steering and navigating. The whole thing is moved by this little tiny rudder. It's the same word, Haggah. So I personally regard the word goy, gimel vav yod, because the suffix ending of a hey or a vav yod does the same thing. The root of it is the gimel. So the same way that the gimel is that which goes this way and that way, or like a boomerang goes back and forth, or like the camel. So it's the rudder that turns this way and that way, which steers the whole thing. So the way you ponder words steers your entire life.
That's beautiful. And that makes me think of Psalms 45:1, where there is a maschil of the sons of Korah, and it's a song of love, and it starts off by saying, my heart overflows with a good theme. I address my verses to the melachim, or to the king. My tongue is the pen of a ready writer. I love that, how he says that his tongue is the pen of a ready writer. Well, I looked up that word transponder, and I must say that this is exactly the word that I would like to use in order to express the form of Yahushua and his sole purpose of coming to communicate to his people. According to Wikipedia, a transponder gathers signals over a range of uplink frequencies and retransmits them on a different set of downlink frequencies to receivers on Earth, often without changing the content of the received signal or signals. Well, that seems to be exactly what the Word in the flesh came to do.
That's right. Yeshua is the great transponder.
Yes, he is. He came to convey frequencies or information that could not otherwise be transmitted. And to those who were here on earth, this is what a transponder does. And it says specifically, without changing the content, without changing the information, which is what many scribes have done. They've taken the word of Yahuwah, right? And they try to transliterate it or translate it into a different language with different frequencies, with different syntax, and in such they have changed the content. So we want to know, what is the pure form of communication? Because we believe that language is extremely important in our relationship with the Creator, because He, Amar, He speaks and He reciprocates by hearing as well. We showed you in a few episodes past that Yahuwah listens. He cares about what we are enduring. It's so important that we take heed to what we are speaking, especially in time of tribulation or through trials. We are either going to speak life or we are going to speak death. So again, I think Eric posed a very good question for us. What is it to receive a vision? Well, in Genesis 15:1, it says that the word of Yahuwah came to Abraham in a vision. So he received a vision of the word of Yahuwah, right? But this word or this vision communicated by saying to Abraham, do not be afraid. I am your shield. Your reward is exceedingly great. So here there was the word, and the word communicated. It amarred. It translated information to Abraham in a vision, and that vision was received. We too want to know, how do we see the word? We want the word to become flesh. We want the word to come alive in us so that we can walk in the power and the authority that was given to the Son. We too want to understand. So back to that word quickly, and then I'll let Eric, I'll let you go on to the word shomer. But just really quick, I want to give you some more information about that word Shema, which again, we said that the basic elements of the word Shema is to hear and obey. And we imagine that to hear and obey is a mark of fidelity or a mark of love, a mark of obedience. He says, if you love me, you will obey me. So to Shema means to love Yahuwah. How do you love him? With all of your heart, with all of your strength, with all of your being, is to obey. But you can't obey something you don't fully comprehend or understand. Now, this word, Shema, carries the connotation of one who completely and fully understands. It's to bring understanding. It is what we would call the spirit of the law. So if something is the letter of the law, it means that it was simply conveyed. It is a natural application. It's instructions that you can follow. You could just simply, if I say, pick up that piece of paper off the floor, and you understood the basic implication of what I am commanding you to do, then you can do that. You can be obedient, and it's your choice. It's of your own volition to do it or not to do it. However, it doesn't mean that you understand why you're picking up the paper, how the paper is picked up, how gravity works. It doesn't mean that you understand everything that is related to that instruction or to that commandment. So Yahushua, I believe, came to bring understanding. He came to bring the fullness of the word that was conveyed through the law and through the prophets. So in Genesis 11:7, Yahuwah says that he is confused the speech of the people at the Tower of Babel so that they could no longer understand each other. This is key. We think that he just simply confused their tongue or split their tongue, where in fact what he did was he made it so that they could no longer understand. Well, in this context, they were prevented from continuing to build up because they no longer had eyes to see, which is vision, or ears to hear, that is discern. And this in return would affect their paradigm and cause confusion, just like it did for or Hava, or the woman in the garden. Remember, the serpent communicated to her ear, and it was her eyes that were affected. And I just showed you in Genesis 15:1, where it says the word of Yahuwah came to Abraham in a vision speaking. So it was the eyes and the ears that were affected. So here, if Yahuwah is saying that he confused the speech of the people at the Tower of Babel so they could no longer understand one another and no longer be able to build up, how would that be affected? Because you need eyes to see and ears to hear in order to understand, in order to build, or in order to do something. So it is in my understanding that we as believers can also walk in the same state of confusion today, even in the Hebrew roots movement and the various movements that are aspiring through the returning of our ancient path. And I believe that there's much confusion because we're simply looking at the text of the word of Yahuwah, and we are imagining that that's all there is to it. Just do A and do B and then do C, and we're good. We're going to get, the effects, which may be the case. But if you're not doing it with understanding, how can you say that you are fully connected to what you're doing? How are you responsible? How can you truly be building up and teaching others if you don't fully understand what you're doing or even why? How is your volition surrendered?
Well, going with this correlation between hearing and seeing, just to show you how close they're related in Hebrew, because in English you might say, well, one has to do with the organ of your eye, the other one the organ of your ear. You might say the sensory perceptors that we were given. But for those of you who have the red dictionary, on page 470 is the word for ayin, which literally is the word for eye. But that same word, depending on the vowel points in the modern, has different meanings. But one of them means to look carefully at, consider, perceive, meditate, deliberate, look carefully at, to think over, balance exactly, weigh carefully, to read, or just what we're doing here, to look up a quotation. So you look up a quotation in the scripture or in the dictionary and you read it. What we're doing right here is literally the word ayin yod nun.
Did you
Ayin.
say, no, just really quick, did you say that the word balance was also included in that definition?
Yeah, the word for eye means to balance exactly, look carefully, weigh, consider, ponder, which is again very
Transponder,
similar word for pondering,
right?
transponder, right? The same word ponder, which is the word haga, which is navigate, steer, consider the phonetics of the spelling of words. But then also, if you go to page 16, the word spelled Aleph
There you go.
Zion Noon
Aleph Zion Noon. Okay,
is the
I'm
word
there.
for ear,
Right.
or to give ear, or
Ozen.
listen. And it also means to balance, level,
Mm.
weigh carefully, test, and prove. Now, it also is like if you have two handles on a pot, so you can pick it up balanced. So to handle something, or having handles or ears, is the same word. And also, if you have a tool belt, like you're a policeman or if you're a contractor and you've got your various tools, that tool belt with weapons or implements is also the same word, Aleph, Zion, Nun. So to wear something which is balanced on your belt is the same concept.
Well, aren't we to wear the belt of truth?
That's
Aren't,
right.
aren't
So
we
what,
to? Okay.
to be gird with the
Right.
belt of truth. To gird, if you look on page 16, Aleph Zion Rash means to be gird or encompassed, which is something that you wear like a belt.
A
So
girdle.
to have a belt with implements is Aleph Zion Nun, but to be gird is Aleph Zion Resh. And again, if you know the meanings of the letters, now you can say, well, here's 2 3-letter words with one letter being different. So now you ponder the difference of the letter, like we're going to do with Shema and Shomer. This is the study of spelling of words, which is Haggah, which there's other words which we see in different scriptures where he talks about breaking something into small pieces and contemplating them. What we're doing here is ironing and Aleph Zion Noon, we're balancing and weighing and carefully
Yes,
looking and
testing.
considering. So at the same time, we're doing ear and eye because they're both the same exact verb of action.
So let me ask you, in John, I think it's First John chapter 4 verse 1, we are told um, by Yahukanan, it says, "Beloved, do not believe every spirit, but test the spirits to see whether they are from Yahuwah, because many false prophets have gone out into the world." So here, that's the word that you mentioned. You said it means to test, also to
Yeah.
balance or to weigh out, to measure or to test, which if we think about what Hava did not do, she did not test. She did not weigh out. She did not consider. I mean, she obviously was given instructions. Her husband obviously took the information that Yahuwah had placed within him innately, giving him instructions, do not eat from that tree. And he obviously was a transponder in such that he was the Word made flesh. He conveyed that information to her. And it was basically the letter of the law. Don't do that. Don't do that, okay? Just don't even go next to it. Don't touch it. Don't look at it. Don't take from that tree. However, we see that that's when I speak of the letter of the law. But did she fully understand? I don't think she fully understood, or else she would not have been deceived. If she was just given instructions, don't do that. Well, that rests on your volition. That says you have the right to choose. Yes or no? You have the right to choose. But I think that when you dig into something and when you exercise your will towards something or bend it towards something, that means that you're making the effort to understand, to connect with, to be echad, to be one with, to either agree or disagree, which is what Amos says, how two can walk together. They become echad, or they walk in echad because they agree. So she did not understand completely, because she says, well, I was told that we can't even touch, we can't reach out for it, we can't even look at it, don't touch it, don't nothing. And so obviously she didn't fully understand, but it seems that she did not test the spirit. She did not test the information that was coming. She didn't balance it out. She didn't weigh it with her eyes or her ears, which again is that word Shema, which means to discern or to rightly divide. It's in Genesis 3:6 that we're speaking of when the woman saw. That's the word ra'ah, which is from that word ro'i. Remember earlier we said that a prophet is a ro'i. Well, she was obviously receiving a vision or some information that was being conveyed to her like a vision. It was information that was coming just like Abraham when the word of Yahuwah came to Abraham speaking. Well, obviously this entity came to her communicating information to her, and it says that she became a ro'i or a ra'ah. She did see a vision. That's that word ra'ah. It means to actually perceive as one who does a vision. So she perceived as she ra'ah as a prophet, one that the tree was good for food. So the vision was like we just read right now in 1 John 4:1, test the spirits, use your ozen, use your ears to balance the information, to weigh it against the word, which is something she did not do. Matter of fact, she gave into the nakash, or she gave into the corruption, the corrupt speech, and she declared by it that it was good for food and that it was pleasant to the eyes, which is really anti-Yahuwah, against Yahuwah, because Yahuwah said, no, it's not. This is not. But she becomes a false prophet like Jezebel in the book of Revelations, and she declares above Yahuwah, it is good. But only Yahuwah was the one. If you go back and you look at the pattern, right, Eric? Yahuwah, Aleph Tav, it was good. Yahuwah, Aleph Tav, it was good. Everything that Yahuwah created, he said it was Tov. That means that it had the potential to produce. And then he said it was very good. And when he says it was very good, that means that it reached its climax or its maximum of potential. So he's saying it was good. That means it has the potential. Then it was very good. That means it reached its potential. So we see here that she's saying, oh, it's good. It has the potential. Well, the potential to do what? To be pleasant to the eyes. You see, the eyes are affected. And she says, a tree, she proclaims, she is acting like Yahuwah. Right here, she's saying, it is tov. I say it's good. And I say it's pleasant. Very good. Okay? And I say what it is. You said it was no good. I'm saying that it is good. You said that it would lead to death. I say it will lead to wisdom. And then she took from the fruit thereof and did eat. Well, guess what? In the BDB, which is the Brown Driver Brig, this word ra'ah, which is what she did, she ra'ah that the tree was good. She saw, can also be used to mean discernment, which is what we were talking about the word shema, to discern, to rightly divide between two things, to differentiate. Well, that's exactly what it means here in this definition, the word see. It means to divide, to differentiate, to know the difference. Remember, our vision is connected to our thought process and can have an effect on our mind. So what we see, we believe, it becomes our reality. What we believe becomes our vision or our perspective or our paradigm. So if we have the word in us, rooted in us, and it's becoming flesh, I tell you that the word is life. The word is like a seed that has the pattern to produce after its own kind, while Yahushua claims to be the word in the flesh. He says that the word of Yahuwah is the seed and the seed is the word. So if we have the word residing within us, taking root, being nourished, then the fruition will be to produce after its own kind, which is the righteousness of Yeshua, the Zadik Zerah, the righteous seed of Yahuwah. So we too, if we have the word working in us, its goal is to bring vision and hearing so that we too, like a son, can rightly divide between life and death, good and evil, so that we can build up the house of Yahuwah, so that we can produce life. If the word is working in us, it should change our paradigm. It should shift the world that we once seen or once ra'ah, we once knew through the eyes of Adam or corruption or deception, which bring us to a place where our eyes are being unveiled and we're no longer deceived by the things of the world, but we are now walking in the light or walking in the truth of his word.
You know, this word that you're talking about, to see, again, for those who have the red dictionary, it's on page 600, spelled Resh Aleph Hey. And if we just think that she saw that the tree was good, well, that's, she applied her physical eyeballs onto the tree and said, hey, it has a certain color and a certain shape, and I find it pleasing.
Like
well,
the letter of the law, right?
Yeah, but see, this word to see, Resh Aleph Hey, you said also means to discern. Let me read a few other definitions that it has.
Okay.
To look at, behold, perceive, conceive, understood, considered, observed, regarded, to choose or approve of, to prefer. It also means to appear to be or to be shown something or to be put on exhibition. So now in Exodus, when they were at Mount Sinai, it said they saw the sound of the shofar. So you think, now how do you see the sound? Now some people think, well, maybe the sound of the shofar took on some visual aspect. But if this word simply means to put on exhibition so that it became perceptible, it was allowed to be seen, allowed to be perceived, then there wasn't necessarily a physical, visible attribute as much as they heard the sound, they perceived the sound. The sound of the shofar was put on exhibition. If you go to a museum and see exhibits, it's the same concept. So what I'm trying to do here is to say that the word roa, Resh Aleph Hey, means more than visible seeing. It has to do with comprehending, and was if Yahweh allows himself to be seen, he uses this word here where he allows himself to be perceived, perceptible, puts in some manner that you could look at that and go, oh, there it is. So, for example, when I saw the connection of the letters of the alphabet to actually be a message where each letter was related to each other, I was allowed to see that. I perceived that, but I didn't see something in particular in my mind's eye. I did. Interestingly enough, that exact same word is vulture. Why would the vulture be Resh Aleph Hey? Well, a vulture is a guy who flies up above looking down and he sees with an overview. It's also the word for lungs. So part of the study of Hebrew is to look at this and say, now, why in the world would the word for lungs be the same as to put on exhibition? And the benefit of the etymological dictionary that Ernest Klein made here is that he shows you the Aramaic word, Arabic word, raya, Akkadian, irtu, which has to do with the word for chest. Well, that's your upper torso where your lungs are. So now we have a relationship between the upper part of your body, which is on display, and then it gets into other words you'll notice having to do with, this gets into numerous different aspects. If you look at Resh Aleph Vav Yod, worthy, fit, suitable, that's the same root word. So if you have a picture of, say, King Kong, right, standing up on top of the Empire State Building and pounding his chest, the gorilla, when you pound your chest, you're showing fortitude. Well, that has to do, that's where your lungs are. So this is the way Hebrew works. When something is strong and fit, you pound your chest. Well, your lungs are in there, so it's all the same word. But if you're up on high and, now I can see what's going on, like the helicopter view, which you might say the helicopter would be like the vulture of the natural animals, just kind of hanging up there in the air. But Resh Aleph Yod is the word for mirror. It's also the word for appearance or aspect, or appearance or figure. It's also the word for excrement or dung, that which was inside hidden suddenly is outside and made evident. That all these things are the same root word of Resh Aleph or Resh Aleph Hey. So the only way to really understand Hebrew is to look at all these meanings, try to fit them together in your mind. Then you look at synonymous words like the word Hey Gimel Hey, Haggah, and the word for Aleph Zion Nun, and you sit there and say, why are all these words either using the same letters, the same words, same concepts, or used together in the same passage? And then as we sit here and ponder, as our minds wander in wonder, those are the same English consonants as even the word for wind, which is the word for ruach. And then you could say, okay, how do you test the spirit? The word ruach is also spirit. And say, okay, if you can correlate all these different things together and find the common thread where they are echad, well, does that mean they're all the same one? Or does it mean they're the same voice? So when he goes back and says, Shema Israel, Yahweh Eloheinu, Yahweh Echad, is he saying that there's only one God, or that he is unified, or that the three are one? Or is he saying, listen, every time you hear a message communicated to you from Yahweh, from Yod He Vav He, it's going to be the same message, not contradictory. Yahweh Echad, the same message. The way to test the spirit is that if you get a vision, gee, is this from God? Is this from Yahweh? Is this from the Holy Spirit? Is this from the Ruach HaKodesh? Is this from Jesus? Is this from Yeshua? Is this from some other sort of whoa, what message is he giving you? Any spirit can stick any label on himself, any name tag at a party. Who is this guy? Is the message Echad with Yud He Wah He?
On that note, let me say something. I really want to point out the fact that you brought up the theophany that was at Mount Sinai, that theophany of hearing, or what was it, seeing the shofar, to see the shofar. Well, there is a preliminary understanding of the physics associated with the shofar. I don't know if you've heard about it, but it's called the blue shift. It's the light or the harmonic overtone series or sympathetic vibrations associated with the shofar. I don't know if you've heard of these terms, but I do want to say that they have done some studies on the sounds of the shofar, and so to say, if we truly understand what it means that they saw the sounds of the shofar, well, to see is a statement referring to the shofar, obviously, or something that's stated when Yahuwah spoke at the receiving of the Torah at Mount Sinai. Again, it says they saw the sound. So, like you said, that question you asked, how is it possible to see the sounds, right? Well, that word they saw relates to two specific words: wisdom, which is chokhmah, and awe, which is yara. Yara, right? To yara. And so Chokhmah Yara, it means to see with awe or to understand with awe. It means wisdom. And in Proverbs, it means the fear of Yahuwah is the beginning of wisdom, right? Chokhmah, right? And so there was a discussion. I don't know if you know about this, but you can look it up. There was a discussion with the physicist R.A. Bernstein, Bernstien, who states that the application of the blue shift was brought to his attention as it relates to the sounding of the shofar. But in brief, what he basically says is that the blue shift is a physical principle of light, the most intense light perceived as intense white light. It's actually a blue purplish light, but he says that as it travels through space, it eventually ends up becoming red, which made me think of our blood, how our blood is blue, but when it hits the oxygen, it becomes red, this light, right? And so he says that it ends up becoming red. And he says if you were to look at the continuum of light from the side, you would see every color of the spectrum. He says that this phenomena is likened to the highest light of Yahuwah. And he says that it's from Yahuwah's highest light, or the light of himself, passing through the contraction, which acts like a prism, and thus all the colors of the spectrum, or the spiritual spectrum, are realized. Okay, so he's saying that he's a physicist, and he's saying that when the shofar was being blown, that it was bringing forth this blue shift, or this spectrum of light. And he goes on to conclude that to hear, or he says, this is his words, to see is the highest of physical senses, and it relates to wisdom. As physics proves, light, color have waves or frequencies, okay? Then he goes on to explain about sound. Well, what he ends up saying in this article here is that living in a paradoxical world, he says here there is no paradox when we come to the conclusion that the eyes can see the prism or the light of what is being spoken. He says that this is a inclusion, a true inner inclusion of oneness. He's saying because everything that is being conveyed at once is everything that's being expressed, not just the note C, or that, just hearing the note C. He's saying all of the vibrations and frequencies associated with the note is being conveyed and received at that very moment, and the two become one. So what you were saying, the word being flesh, or the word coming in the form of man, is everything that Yahuwah had to say being conveyed or expressed through bodily form, or through human form. So Yahushua was the light of man. He was the light of Yahuwah being expressed in every form, in every spectrum of pure wisdom and beauty. And I don't think we understand fully that this is the expression of Yahushua. He says that he's the image of the invisible qualities of Yahuwah. He is the image of the invisible one. So when they were seeing the shofar, this physicist believes that it was the frequencies or the dimension of every note being hit, that they were actually connecting to the notes. They were actually connecting to the purest form of the shofar as it was being expressed. So we are also to see the word. And if the word is made flesh, then it should also be conveyed to us as light or as truth that expels darkness, correct?
That's right. Another interesting matter that you have touched on here. I heard it said once that matter, physicality, is essentially crystallized light. And when I say crystallized, it means to be put into what we would call the form of solid or matter, right? So you got like solid, liquid, gas, and plasma, and light you'd probably put into the category of plasma. But matter it's all of the same substance. So as you brought up the description of who is Yahushua, he is so purely the Echad, the complete, the total, the on the same page as the word in its purest form, the word as light, the word as sound, the word as object matter manifestation of the word. And then if you say, well, human beings were actually the pinnacle of creation, the highest form of creation. If you look through the Genesis 1 account, Yahweh started off with what appears to be tohu vebohu. Then he made light and dark, and he made the waters, and then started separating with land, and then brought forth the plants and the animals, and then formed man's body and breathed into him the breath of life, gave him the spark of consciousness, and then he stopped with what he made. So mankind is at the highest form, but man himself, humanity, is also the frequencies of sound and light and the potential for us to be echad with Yahweh. Remember Yeshua's prayer in the garden. He said that he petitioned that we in him would be echad with the Father the same way he was echad with the Father. Now that doesn't mean that he is the Father. That's not what he was saying. If he is echad with the Father, that means he's with the same frequency, the same voice, the same word, the same substance and essence. And he was asking that we would too. That doesn't mean he's asking that we would become the Father. There's this gets into a theological area that maybe this isn't the time and place to deal with it. But what I'm trying to bring up is that humanity, humans, you and me, and each one of us, as we contemplate these words, the objective is to, you might say, synchronize the frequency of the word to be echad with that of the heart of the Father, which is Aleph Tav. And Yeshua himself was the accomplishment of that in its purest form as a person. And he said that we should follow him, be one with him, do it just like him. And that is the ultimate potential of us as humans, which is distinct from any other element of creation. That is our potential realized right there.
Beautiful. It makes me think about countenance. So when the word is being expressed properly in us, when we are taking in the word, we're not just reading the word and saying, oh, okay, in its basic form, we do this and the end result is that, right? Cause and effect, okay? So what we're saying is, look, I don't understand this. And we're not being pretentious and we're not insubordinate. We're not saying, look, your ways are corrupt and wrong and messed up and I can do better. No, we're not saying that. We're saying, look, I really want to understand you. I want to understand what you want me to understand. You've conveyed this information for a reason. I want to connect with it. I want it to be written in my heart. I want it to become also who I am, because obviously Yahuwah is expressing exactly who he is. He's expressing it in his word form. And if this is written on your heart, this is who you are. Well, I want to know who you are. Why do you do this? Why do you say this? Why is this so? Why was it written this way? Why did you do it this way? I want to know you. I really want to know you. I want you to be written and established. I want to be like you. I want to express who you are in me. I want to lay myself down before you, and I want you to be expressed through my life. I want you to be glorified, right? I want you to receive the glory for the works of your hands, because I am the work of your hands. So if the word is truth, the word is light, and there is no deception in him, then that word, when we take it in and when we wrestle with it, when we say, I'm not going to let go of this word until you bless me, until the word brings a baruch, a barucha, a blessing into my life, until it conveys life, because I realized that I was once subject to a lie. I was hidden in corruption, and I was obviously subject to sin. So we were subject to sin, and we were in our former man or our former nature. Then this word, as we take it in and we shema and shomer, which is what we'll get into shomer in our next episode. But as we take in the word, we realize that the words of Yahuwah Elohim are wisdom. They are light. They are truth. It is wisdom. And we become yara. We are then full of awe. And this is the respect that he deserves. The awe or the fear of Yahuwah is the beginning of wisdom. So this is that awe, the days of awe, and we take in his word with great admiration, and we say, let your word be made known in me. And it makes me think of Cain, when Cain became wroth with Yahuwah because his offering had not been respected back in Genesis 4:6. And Yahuwah says, why has your countenance fallen? And we know that word countenance basically is the word panim, which means mouth or face, and then fallen, which is the word nephal, okay, which is where we get the word nephilim, okay, Nephilim. And he's saying here, why has your face become Nephilim, or why has your face become Nephal? But that word panim, or that word for countenance, is Pei Nun Yud Mem, and it basically means that which turns, or a turning object. That's something that has like a panoramic. It's the only thing I can think of is panorama. Like a camera that has aspect ratio, and it can turn from the left to the right. And why has your face, that which perceives or has an aspect, why has your aspect fallen? Well, I just wanted to bring this up, and then we'll get into it next week as we look up the word shomer and we understand a little bit more of what it means to have the word expressed in us. Well, just really quick, I'll leave you with this, Eric, and then you can conclude here. There's another word very closely related to panim, except that this is panin with a noon, sofit at the end. So it's the letter pe, nun, yud, nun, sofit. And guess what that word means? It means a ruby, or a gem that glistens when it's turned. Again, having many aspects, or an aspect ratio. And so when it turns and it receives the spectrum of light, it then responds by glistening, or by shining, or by expressing that light. And it's a prism of light, which is what we were talking about earlier. So this word is very closely related to panim here, when he says, why has the countenance fallen? Why is the light? Why are you now dark? Why are you grieved? Why are you so downcast? Put your hope in Yahuwah, right? But he failed to do that, and he gave in to the desires of his heart, which was be angry but sin not. But in this case, he sinned, and he slew his brother. So if you stay tuned with us, we will go into the word shomer next week and break open that word. But remember, what we're saying here is that we are to shema like the prophets of old. We are to hear the word and have that word expressed through us as a form of light or truth that expels darkness. So thank you for joining me, Eric. I had fun as usual. Remember, you can go to HaKol Kala Ministries.org and access these podcasts You can tune in here at Messianic Lamb Radio, and you can also reach Eric at
Paleo Sefer. So my email is paleosfr@gmail.com. SFR would be like Samic Pei Resh, or the English words Sam, Frank, Ralph, SFR. The word Sefer means book, or to cipher, or to connect the dots. The website would be paleosepher.com, but that would be PALEOSEPHER. Paleosepher spelled out. There's a website that has various things on it.
Well, thank you for sojourning with us. We say to you, Zakar, remember the words of Yahushua. And he said unto them, take nothing for your journey, neither staves, nor scrip, neither bread, nor money, because Yahuwah Elohim Ampon.
Yivarechecha Yahuwah.
Shalom.
Shalom.
Yeah, but can you tell the difference between a winner and a loser? Between the righteous and unrighteous? Huh? Can you?
Boy, sometimes no. Sometimes the lines are pretty blurred. I wish I was as knowledgeable and as insightful that I could. You know, we follow different people and different teachings throughout our life, and only to come up short and disappointed too many times. You know, how many times did you change your mind going through Christianity and the different denominations, and then into Messianics, and from one teacher to another, and even listen to Lamb Radio. I mean, that's one of the great things about Mark, is he has different perspectives, and you can get a smidgen of this and a smattling of that, and
right. And a bicar, baby, even if you need it or not.
Yeah.
It's a giant hodgepodge of everything.
Yeah. Well,
you gotta have an Alka-Seltzer commercial.
Pam?
Flop, flop, fizz, fizz. Oh, what do we need to do?
Shalom. I'm Susan Hoogie of Messianic Morning Prayers. Are you seeing the potential for prophecy to be fulfilled in our day? Does this cause you to be fearful of the future? And are you fearful for family members who are not like-minded? There are plenty of scriptures where God tells us not to fear. In Psalms 118, verse 6, we are told this: "The Lord is on my side. I will not fear. What can man do to me?" How do we not fear? Quite simply, we need to develop a relationship with our God and learn who He is, and not just learn about Him. Just as soldiers train for battle, or police train with a partner, they come to know each other intimately and rely on each other for their very lives. They do not doubt their comrades. They know that they are cared for and watched over, and they too do the same in return. This is what we are to do in our relationship with our God. Messianic Lamb Radio is focusing on being a sanctified tool for our powerful and majestic God to use to teach us all about how to have a very close relationship with Him. Let's do this together.